welcome to my YouTube channel. Myself Ujjal Baro. In this video, I'm going to discuss about the library legislations in India. This is the part 1 video, lectures video on library legislation. So these are the contents. So what is library legislation? State policy for library and information services, objectives and need for library public library acts, bills, legislations, components of library legislations, advantages of library legislation, functions of library legislation, factors for consideration, history of public library act from world view, and then history of public library act in India, model bill acts and efforts made in India for establishing library legislation, library acts in India. So first, what is library legislation? So library legislation refers to the legal frameworks and regulation established by government authorities to govern and guide the development and functioning of libraries within a region or jurisdiction. Also, library legislation is the best and assured way of providing public library services in a democratic and free society. The main purpose of Public Library Act is to, or the Library Legislation Act is to help a reader to use documents for enriching his knowledge or for leisure time occupations or for any other purposes. So state policy for library and information services. So as per the Constitution of India, the subject of library service forms part of the state list, that is comes under the state government, and whereas the subject of education is a part of concurrent list, so it is obligatory on the part of the state governments or union territories to enact laws for library legislations. Before enacting any laws, the state should frame a policy for public libraries and implement it through statutory provisions, that means the State Public Libraries Act. So the developed countries had adopted this procedure. The UNESCO Public Library Manifesto, that is in 1994, also stressed that a clear policy must be formulated defining objectives, priorities and services in relation to the local community needs. So the state policy for library and information services should cover the following areas, that is free and equitable access. So a public library should render service freely to all members of the community without any discriminations, and then prioritize services. The public library shall serve the community in order of priority, illiterates and new literates, semi-literates, and the participants in non-formal education programs, people pursuing self-education, people interested in self-employment schemes, semi-skilled children and young, casual readers, housewives and higher education and research, etc. And then information center, for arranging free access to information, they should act as an information center. They should provide access to all citizens for all types of informations at all levels, provide informations on local enterprises, associations and local interest groups, develop local stories, develop community information services, utilize the services of National Informatics Center and introduce computer skills for achieving speed, accuracy and efficiency in services. Then the public libraries in a developing society, and then cultural preservation. So it is the public libraries in a developing society should preserve cultural heritage, provide access to all forms of cultural expression, make efforts to foster intercultural dialogue, favor cultural diversity and support oral tradition. And then two-tier system. A federal country like India needs a two-tier public library system in a state, that is one at the state level as an apex body, and other at the district levels for spreading its activities to the village level with necessary infrastructure. Then comprehensive collections. The state government will formulate a comprehensive book selection policy for public libraries in the state. The public library should acquire all kinds of documents including the multimedia, and then dedicated cadre. In case of human resource, the government should constitute a state library and information service cadre including subordinate service unit for this purpose, and recruitment rules for the said service and conditions of service shall be subject to the provisions of the Article 309 of the Indian Constitution. And then funding. Through library legislation, the state government will impose library fees like educational fees as shares on all possible items such as house tax, property tax, vehicle tax, etc. as per the local conditions. And then support other libraries. The government will encourage the libraries maintained by local bodies such as voluntary agencies, Mahalya Mandal. So this is about the state policy for library and information services. And then objectives and need for public library acts bill legislation. So library and information service is a crucial factor in the national development for meeting learning needs of the masses. It is only through a state public library act that a public library system could be created, sustained and promoted, ensuring a smooth financial flow, properly governed and managed to provide modern library services to all. So library legislation is essential for ensuring an effective, well organized and accessible public library system. The key objectives and needs of library legislation could be proper administration and supervisory body with executive powers. Library legislation establishes an authority to observe the functioning of libraries, ensuring smooth operations and decision making. For example, a state library authority is created to manage all public libraries, appoint staff and allocate resources. And then secondly, it will provide a well organized library system for the state, district and up to the remote village level with free access to all the citizens. So library legislation ensures that libraries are set up at every level at the state, district and village so that all citizens have access to knowledge. For example, a village library is established under a district library network, making books and digital resources available to rural communities also. Then third, library legislation must provide a steady and permanent source of finance. It guarantees financial support for libraries through government funding, taxes and grants. For example, portions of local municipal taxes is allocated to maintain and expand public libraries in some state. And then library legislation will maintain standards in library services. Library legislation ensure uniformity in library services including book collections, staff qualifications and infrastructure. For example, every library must have trained librarians, a minimum number of books and access to digital resources. And then lastly but not the least, accountability and commitment to objectives. So library legislation will be obliged to meet the objectives and remain accountable. So library legislation holds libraries responsible for fulfilling their roles in education, research and public services. For example, public libraries must submit annual reports detailing their activities, services and financial expenditure to the higher authority. So these objectives helps create a strong and accessible library system for all citizens, promoting education and lifelong learning. So these are the objectives of the library legislations in a state. And then components of library legislation. These are the components of library legislation. First is the preamble. So the preamble of the act should clearly spell out the objectives of library legislations, and therefore it should be precise and explicit. And then state level authority. So the act should be, the act should have uh, the provisions for the constitutions of a board as the state library authority. For example, the minister in charge of library should be the state library authority charged with the duty of implementing the act. It will be his duty to supervise and promote the improvement of the library service provided by the library authorities and to secure proper discharge of their functions. It shall be his statutory duty to establish, equip, administer a state library system providing comprehensive and efficient library service free of charge to all the citizens in the state. And then chief executive of the state. These are the third components of the library legislations. In the library legislation act, the chief executive at the state level shall be called the director of public libraries, who should and in information science professional. The director shall supervise and control the public library system of the state with the guidance of the state library authority. And then for the network of libraries, so the act should provide for establishment and functioning of public libraries as a pyramidal structure from village or even a hamlet level to the state level via the district covering towns and tehsils, etc. And then financial clauses. The act should spell out financial sources to ensure a regular flow of funds and their deployment. There should be a provisions in the act to collect library fees from all possible sources. Dr. S. R. Ranganathan, a pioneer in library legislation in India, advocated for the provisions of library fees in the Model Acts. He incorporated the provisions of library fees in all acts he had drafted in his lifetime. Then the advisory committee for public library headed by Sri K.P. Sinha committee examined this issue and opined that in spite of a strong body of opinion against library fees, the committee has come to the conclusions that only a cess can provide a stable base for library finance. It is to be recognized that the levy of library fees is essential for a planned and systematic growth of an authority through assured and established financial resources. And then manpower is the most important thing. A provision should be made to create a cadre of state library services, and all the members of the said service should be government servants, and their recruitment and conditions of service should be as per provisions of the Article 309 of the Constitution of India. And then accountability is the activities and accounts of the public library system shall be open to public inspection, supervisions, and as per official audit rules. And then registrations of books, there must be a provisions for the registrations of books and periodicals published in the state under the legal deposit rules. Then there must be rules, so rules should be made by the state library authority for all the sections for smooth functioning administration and control of the offices in the state. We can use the 5 laws of library science that is provided by S. R. Ranganathan to make the rules in a library legislations act. So these are the components of library legislations. And then the advantages of library legislation you can see in the slide. It helps in the establishment of an organized network of public libraries, a sound administrative setup. We can set up a sound administrative setup, proper and continuous financial support for the development of the public libraries, for providing services to the people of that state. Then coordinations in administrations and management of public libraries. It helps to the coordinations in administrations and management of public libraries, and satellite services like purchase, processing, bibliographical, and other services that can provide conveniently. And then possibility of providing quality library services with qualified hands at a free of charge. So these are the advantages of the library legislations that people of a state can get benefit from this legislation. And then functions of library legislation. There are lots of functions and are there key functions of library legislations according to Advisory Committee for Libraries 1958. So it should clearly define the government's responsibility in the matter of public libraries, and legislation should lay down the constitutions and functions of the library authority at the national, state, and district level. And then legislation should provide an assured basis of library finance. There are two ways of providing a firm basis for library finance. First, the special libraries is. So libraries is nothing but is a tax levied on property tax, motor vehicle tax, and entertainment tax to fund public libraries. The funds which are collected through the different things for the development of public libraries, that is called the libraries. Okay, and then reservations of certain percentage of the education's budget for the development of public libraries in a state. Then legislation should lay down the structures of the public library system, and then legislation should provide the main function, and the lastly but not the least, it should provide for participation of the representative of the public in the work of the public libraries at all levels. So these are the functions of library legislations. And then factors for consideration. C.O. Hall, in his work, there is a book Libraries in Adult and Fundamental Educations, mentions the following as factor to be kept in view for library legislation. First is the simplicity and flexibility. The library legislation must be both simple and general. It should allow for the future's development without giving an opportunity for misrepresentations. Secondly, political stability. It must, as far as possible, be kept above accidents of political changes, and then encouraging growth. The law must make library services possible, encourage development, and ensure that libraries shall provide. And then coordinations and control. Fourth, it should coordinate library services, library activities, and control them in full recognition of the people's right to free access to the means of knowledge and factual informations. And then financial support. The law should stipulate the duties and privileges of public libraries, and above all the terms of financial assistance that they should receive from public authorities. Then administrative clarity. The law must make clear the respective responsibilities of local, state, and national administrations in respect of public libraries. Then state rules. The law may provide either for the state establishment of libraries or state aid when local governments are managing them. The library service may be made compulsory if the financial resources of the district are adequate. And then compulsory services. The law must prescribe that public libraries should be free to one and all. There is free access. Okay. The law should also provide for public library resources to supplemented by those of academic, specialized, and scientific libraries. And then all libraries should lend their books free of charge to all citizens in the country uh, in accordance with an approved scheme for co-persons between libraries, there is the resource sharing. Then the book in stock should cover every set of opinion. Censorship should uh, apply to the type of books which would incite crime and violence. The law should also include a provisions for the establishments of libraries for children's schools and for the defense service and martial marine. So these are the factors of for considerations that is given by the whole. And then history of public library act. So Great Britain, Mr. Edward of the British Museum was a firm believer of the establishment of public libraries with public funds through legislation. The thread was picked up by William Ewart and moved proposal in the Parliament of the Great Britain in 1849. On approval of the Selections Committee, the bill was introduced in early 1850. The bill finally became act on 14 August 1850. You can see in the slide, which is a red letter day in the annals of the library movement, not only in the Great Britain but also in the whole world. So this is the first library act to be ever enacted in the world. Okay, so there are different public library acts are there. Okay, so first the Ranganathan UK experience. So Professor Ranganathan, who he was visited in the UK in the 1924, that he saw that the functioning of the library act and was convinced of the role library legislation can play in the establishment of a network of public libraries for all sections of the society with public funds. So Model Library Act, this was prepared by the Professor Ranganathan. Model Library Act. So it was presented the same at the All Asia Educational Conference held at the Banaras in 1993. Then attempt to make public library act in Bengal, Kumara Munidra, you can see Debroy, Mahasai of Bana Sorbia, who attended the conference with the help of Ranganathan, got a draft bill prepared for the Bengal and introduced the same in the Bengal legislature. But unfortunately the bill was turned down by the Governor General of India because of certain compulsory clauses. And then he falls in Madras. Then Janab Basir Ahmed Syed introduced library bill in the Madras legislature in 1931 on behalf of the Madras Library Association. The bill could not get through as the local self-government wanted an amended, making provisions for a grant to the department for collecting the cess by the local bodies. Okay, this is the first attempt that was made in Madras in 1931, and then second effort was also made, that is in 1935. So unfortunately this time it could not get the approval as the Madras legislature was dissolved by the directions of the government of India. And then in 1948, third attempt of the Madras Library Association made in 1946 through the good offices of Ranganathan meet with success in 1948. The then Minister of Education in Madras State, Conwell Pinas Lingam Chettiar, took special interest and got the bill passed in the 1948, and it is the first Public Library Act, Library Legislations Act. There is the Madras Library Act. Now it is known as the Tamil Nadu Library Act. Okay, and then Kohalpur uh, Public Library Act 1945. So the credit of enacting a Library Act for the first time in India, however, goes to the Kohalpur princely state of the present Maharashtra, whereby the Karvir Nagar Vachen Mandir was declared a state central library. The act also made provisions for providing mobile library service and organizing library training classes. So this is the first public library act before independence. Okay, then so efforts outside Madras, several efforts were made in different states, mostly with the initiative or support of Ranganathan. Some of these are the CP and Birar in 1946 bill drafted by Ranganathan. Tanbokor, you can see the name of the cities in these maps. So that's why I have given this map. Tanbokor. So bill drafted by Ranganathan. Cochin's in 1947 bill drafted by also Ranganathan. So this is presently Cochin is the city of Andhra Kerala. And then United Province in 1949. The United Province was the province of British India. It was later, named today it is known as the Uttar Pradesh state of India. Then in United Province, that was UP, Uttar Pradesh. So it is drafted a bill in 1949 by the Ranganathan, and Kashmir in 1949 bill drafted by P.N. Kola. Mr. Kola also prepared a draft bill for Delhi, which also failed to get attention. So these are the some efforts that is outside of the Madras made by different prominent library and information scientists, that is Ranganathan, P.N. Kola. Okay. So now let's understand the model bill acts and efforts made in India for establishing library legislations act. So first is the Union Bill in Ranganathan 1948, and then Model Public Libraries Bill 1963, Model Public Libraries Bill 1965, India Library Association Model Libraries Act 1989, Ranganathan's draft bill for various states, Kola's bills, efforts made by others, efforts made by Library Association. So let's discuss one by one. So Union Bill of Ranganathan, the government of India appointed a committee in 1948 to suggest the possibility of establishing a national central library at New Delhi. Dr. S.R. Ranganathan submitted his report titled Library Development Plan, a 30-year program for the India, and draft library bill for the union and constituent state. So following are the features of this model. First is the establishment of State Library Authority, then the second State Library Committee, then Department of Public Libraries headed by a State Librarian, then for local library authority at district level, then establishment of State Library Services, State Bureau for the Blind, State Bureau of Interlibrary Loan, State Bureau of Technical Services, and then state, lastly but not the least, State Library Fund with provisions for libraries. So this is about the Union Bill of Ranganathan. So and then Model Public Libraries Bill 1963. So Model Public Libraries Bill 1963, while accepting the recommendations of the Advisory Committee for Libraries, the Union government constituted a committee of experts under the chairmanship of Mr. Sen to separate a Model Public Library Bill. So this bill was released in the 1963 and circulated to all the state governments for necessary actions, and National and State Library Association for informations, comments and promotion. So silent features of this bill was the establishment of State Library Council, State Library Directorate to look into the administrations and technical matters, Then thirdly, State Library Committee vested with the responsibility of preparing a perspective plan, and no mentions of libraries. There is no mentions of libraries. So this is the Model Public Libraries Bill 1963, and then Model Public Libraries Bill 1965. So while preparing the four five plan 5-year plan, planning commissions appointed a group working group on libraries in 1964 with Dr. V.K. R.B. Rao as its chairman. The report of working group appended a Model Public Libraries Bill, that is 1965. The silent features of these bills are constitutions of a committee of experts equal to State Library Authority, State Library Council of advisory nature, then 3 State Library Director to control, supervise and direct the State Library System, then 4 establish a public library system with State Central Library, B State Regional or Divisional Libraries, C District Libraries and the D Local Libraries, training facility for employees, then the State Library Services, then 7 no libraries is recommended. So these are the features of this Model Public Libraries Bill. The group of working group on libraries, that is under the chairmanship of Dr. P.K. R.B. Rao, mentioned these features in this bill. And then Indian Library Association Model Libraries Act 1989. So the ILA has did too much for the development of development and implementation of libraries legislation. So the Indian Library Association has been contributing its bit for library legislation right from the beginning. It circulated the Ranganathan's model bill in 1942 to various states. It passed the resolutions at the All India Library Conference held in Nagpur in 1948, requesting the government of India to take steps in these directions. It's an ILS 14 All India Conference held at Patna in 1964 organized a seminar on state library legislation and thoroughly discussed on the Model Public Libraries Bill and made several commendable amendments for its smooth working. Another seminar was also held in Chandigarh under the auspices of Punjab Library Association during November 1947. Again in 1978 it had organized a seminar in Delhi on library legislations. In 1981 another seminar on a second look at the library legislation in India was held in Hyderabad, and in 1989 got a Model Public Libraries Act prepared by Dr. V. Venkatapaya, who was the chairman of its Central Sectional Committee on Public Libraries. Now, so this was discussed at a seminar held in Delhi on 14 February 1990, organized by ILA in collaboration with the RRL, Raja Mohan Roy Library Foundation. So, the salient features of this bill was the State Library Authority with Minister for Libraries as head 1. Secondly, the State Library Council. Thirdly, the Department of Public Libraries with a qualified person as a director. Fourthly, the State Regional City District Library Authorities. Fifthly, establishment of State Planning Board, Staff Welfare Board, Board of Library Education, State Book Development Council and Adult Education Council, granting aid to private libraries. Then 6. Libraries and equal matching grant from the state government. 7. Public inquiry on an irregularity. Then 8. State Library Services. So this is the Indian Library Association Models Library Act, and these are the features of this bill. So Ranganathan drafted bills for various states that are the mentioned here. I have given this name first the central provinces that was drafted in the 1946. Andhra Pradesh 1957, Cochin 1946, West Bengal 1958, Travancore 1947, Uttar Pradesh revised 1958, then United Provinces 1949, Kerala 1960, Hyderabad 1953, Mysore 1961, Andhra Pradesh 1957, and Assam 1964. These are the drafted bills by the S.R. Ranganathan. And then model bill and acts in India, there is a Kola's bill. So Professor P.N. Kola had drafted the library development plans and the library model bills for the two states, that is Jammu and Kashmir in 1951 and Delhi, then Part C state, that is in 1954. Then effort was also made by others except S.R. Ranganathan, P.N. Kola. There are Kumara Monindra Dev Rai Mahasai, Dr. Venkata Paya Rao Bahadur, S.K. Bol, Messrs. A.F.I.G., then the Bombay State, R.L. Mittal, J.L. Trehan, Punjab, B.S. Mogi, MP, M.L. Bagi, Haryana, B.B. Shukla, Orissa, S.R. Gupta, and S.S. Bharma, and several others made efforts towards library legislation in their respective states. So these are the library association who try to enact, try to pass Public Library Act in a respective state. So first is the Assam Library Association, Bengal Library Association, Delhi Library Association, Gujarat Library Association, Haryana Library Association, Kerala Library Association, MP Library Association, Punjab Library Association, Rajasthan Library Association, UP Library Association. So these are the library acts in India presently enacted in the different states. So there are mainly 19 legislations act are there. So out of the 20 library acts mentioned above, Kohalpur Public Libraries Act was confined to the state library. No library system was in basic for the entire state, hence it cannot be compared with other library acts in India. Furthermore, Kohalpur state was merged with Bombay Presidency. With the result, it lost its statehood. The Hyderabad state was disintegrated and a portion seat was annexed with Andhra, Maharashtra and Karnataka. The Hyderabad Public Library Act 1955 has a very short span of operations. Then minus these two, there are 18 states in India having library legislation on their statute books. Okay, even among these 18, only 10 states have system of public libraries based on library in operations. 8 of the states do enacted library legislation could not commence implementation. Okay, so these are the public libraries act. First is the Madras Public Libraries Act 1948. Now it is called Tamil Nadu Public Libraries Act. Hyderabad Public Libraries, it is non-functional, 1955, that was established in 1955. And then Andhra Pradesh Public Libraries Act 1960, Mysore Public Libraries Act 1965, now it is known as the Karnataka Public Libraries Act. Maharashtra Public Library Act 1967, West Bengal Public Libraries Act 1979, Manipur Public Libraries Act 1988, Kerala Public Libraries Act 1989, and then Haryana Public Libraries Act 1989. Haryana, Kerala, it was enacted in same year, that is in 1989. Mizoram Public Libraries Act 1994, Goa Public Libraries Act 1994, Gujarat Public Libraries Act 2001, Orissa Public Libraries Act 2001, Uttaranchal Public Libraries Act 2005, Rajasthan Public Libraries Act 2006, Uttar Pradesh Public Library Act 2006, Bihar Public Libraries and Information Centers Act 2008, Chhattisgarh Public Libraries Act 2008, Arunachal Pradesh Public Libraries Act. So these are the public library acts in India. Okay. So in the next lecture video, I will discuss separately about the library legislations act, different library legislations act, that is we have already discussed in this slide. We will discuss broadly about the library legislations act, particular library legislation act that is enacted in a particular state. Okay, so thank you so much.